Welcome back to the channel, folks. Have you been watching much YouTube lately? And I'm speaking to our European viewers, or have you been glued to the Euro 2020 finals? I know I have. Probably watching too much football, but only comes around every now and again, especially for a team like Scotland. First qualification in a very, very long time. When this game goes out tonight, we'll be playing England, and I'm very worried about that. But never mind that, you're here to watch some Flames of War. So let's go over and see what we're all about today. So today I am playing Brian. Got him back on the channel. He's been very busy playing lately. We're going to try out Tank Hunters again, and I want to try out Soviet Infantry again. So let's go over to the lists, have a look at them, and see what we've brought to the fight. Here's the Soviet list. It is the Hero Shock Rifle. So we'll start with the core formation. I've got, company command. One Hero Shock Rifle platoon, that's 13 bases plus a commissar. Then we've got two of the storm groups. There's two there because, I'm finding that less is definitely not more when it comes to Soviet infantry. So it's unlikely they'll all get pinned, one might get in. And these guys, especially these guys, these are careful and veteran. They're very good if you can get them into assault. They've got submachine guns, they've got a big mixture of things which I'll cover very quickly, but they guys have got veteran skill rating as well, I think. So they've got some good skill ratings. These guys are hard to hit. Let's see if I can get them in up close to Brian's Germans. So these guys, within each platoon, has got 7 bases of SMGs plus a commissar. Then they've got heavy machine gun, single mortar, anti-tank rifle, and I've paid for flamethrowers because they want to get up close and personal. They will die before they get out the starting blocks. That's what usually happens. The other one's the same. So they've got heavy machine guns that can be given maybe longer range support, mortars that can be dropped off to help with the barrage effect. It's not going to be very devastating, but it might get a pin, might just keep people's heads down, it might pin an anti-tank gun platoon. So that's the core formation. Not a lot of platoons, but quite strong platoons, so they should last. And then in support, first of all, 122mm artillery, which is kind of my go-to for Soviets these days. Costs the same as Katyushas, costs the same as 76mm artillery with a wee observer. Then 5 T-34 flame tanks. If they don't go up in flames themselves, they might do a bit of damage. I'll just have to be careful. Platoon of T-60s, or 70s, sorry. Now, I could have had a platoon of mortars instead there, but I kind of like the idea of having a little mob of tanks to push into potential ambush positions, maybe to get around behind the opponent to get at his artillery, these kind of things, or at least to take some heat that might be directed against these guys, the sort of medium or light anti-tank, because any heavy anti-tank is going to be directed against these guys. These are the ISU 122s. I'm not sure if they're going to do much heavy lifting in this game. It's maybe going to be down to the infantry to do that, but they are an effective artillery bombardment as well as a decent range, effective anti-tank. So if they're sitting still in particular, only one shot each, but if they hit, they've got a very good chance of killing things. So, bit of a mixed bag. We'll see how it goes, but I am keen to play the Soviet infantry again, try them out. Brian's German list, Panzer Grenadier. Company HQ, 2 platoons with a Shrek added, platoon of mortars, and then 4 88s and a battery of Wesps with an observer Panzer III. That's a good 60 points, that's a good split. And then Tank Hunters, because we want to try the Tank Hunters again, so a platoon of Panzer 470s and a platoon of Martyrs. And this is probably a much more sensible way of using them as a support option rather than a be all and end all option. So there you go. Once again, it's in terms of numbers of platoons, I think it probably matches the Soviets actually. So they've not got a large number of, for the core formation, not got a large number of platoons, but these guys are all veteran, they'll all be hard to kill. The Panzer 470 is a tank hunter with a Panzer gun on a Panzer 4 chassis. It is rated as careful, so is hit on a 4+. It is confident, so motivates on a 4+, but counterattacks on a 5+ because it's an assault gun. It's got the Third Reich rule, so last stands on a 3+. It's veteran, so it's 3+ skill checks, except in assault, which is 4+. A tactical move of 10 inches, but a slightly slower than average cross-country dash of 16 inches. The gun has a very long 40-inch range, with a rate of fire of 2, anti-tank of 14, 3+ firepower, and is forward firing. The cross-check on this vehicle is only a 5+, so it's not going to be the most manoeuvrable vehicle. You want to get it into a position where it can use its exceptional range and hard-hitting anti-tank to take out the enemy, whilst perhaps keeping yourself in cover and your flanks protected. The Marder is a lightly armoured mobile anti-tank gun platform. It's careful, so hit on a 4+, confident, so motivates on a 4+, but it counterattacks on a 6+, being an open top self-propelled gun. It's got the Third Reich 3+ last stand. It has a skill of 3+ for being a veteran, but assaults on a 5+, once again for being an assault gun. Front and side armour are very weak at just 1, with 0 on the top. The tactical move is 10 inches, cross country is 18 inches, and cross check is a little bit weaker at 4+. The gun has a 32-inch range, a rate of fire of 2, an anti-tank of 12, a firepower of 3. The gun is more than powerful enough to deal with any medium opposition, but you need to keep this vehicle in cover as much as possible due to its own weak armour protection. Hero shock rifle companies represent the more experienced end of the Soviet infantry arm. They're aggressive, so they're hit on a 3+. They motivate on a 4+, as are confident, but if they have a commissar, they can motivate on a 3+. They have a good skill rating of 3+ as well, which could be vital in assaulting or perhaps making an important blitz move. They have a 3+ save. They're armed with rifles. They don't have medium machine gun teams, so they get a rate of fire of 1 halted or on the move. It's not affected by any penalties on the move, but it's only a rate of fire of 1. But you can add heavy machine guns, anti-tank rifles and flamethrowers to the platoon to give it a bit more range or a bit more heavy hitting firepower. The mission is contact. I chose manoeuvre, Brian chose defend, and this is what we rolled. I think we played this recently. It's one of these, it's not even really a defensive mission in the true sense. It's more of a fair fight because both sides have to take an objective. You see there is deployment and objective zones for both. So special rules, immediate reserves for the attacker, so we're both starting half off, which is challenging for both of us. Ambush, and then scatter delayed reserves. As you can see, the defender cannot determine exactly where the reserves are going to come on. If they're lucky in the right circumstances, like a 1 or a 2 or a 5 or a 6 could bring the reserves on in the opponent's flank, which can be quite useful. So there's pluses and minuses about that. So there's a mission. It's quite simple, straightforward setup. So we'll go over now to see how the forces have been deployed. So the mission is contact, and we have deployed. Brian is a defender. He's chosen this side. He chose defend, I chose manoeuvre. He's chosen this side to defend from, so the deployment zone you can see going up through the town, not quite into the church. He's got a hill, some buildings, a hill and a wood. On my side I've got a wood and a hill to hide behind, then There's a wood over there to the front of my objectives, but otherwise it's fairly open. Brian's place, let me see, one objective here and one over there. I stuck one over here and then opposite corner over there. Now, Panzer Grenadier platoons on both objectives for Brian, the mortars in the middle, company commander, observer with the dreaded 88s in ambush. Off table then is his tank hunters, his Marders and Panzer 470s. I've got 122s, observer, storm group, T70s, storm group, and then hero shock rifles over there. Company command is with a storm group. And off table I have got my ISUs and my flame T-34s. So we're ready to go, folks. We'll tidy up with all these markers and come back after Soviet turn 1. So, Soviet turn 1. No reserves that turn. In terms of movement, these guys here dashed up the storm group and the T-70s. Everything else stayed still. And then in terms of shooting, the 122s lifted their ranged in on the objective and managed to range in first time against the mortars. They got a couple of hits but no kills. There is at least a pin. And then the single storm group mortar ranged in over here and actually managed to kill a base of infantry. I guarantee these single mortars are probably more devastating than a normal artillery platoon for the Soviets, just because they've got that 3-up skill check. So a bit of movement, a wee bit of shooting, but that's it for the Soviets. So over to Brian for his turn 1. German turn 1, no reserves, so it was unpinnings and the mortars unpinned, these guys unpinned. So seeing these guys as the main threat, Brian turn 2 artillery units on them, the mortars and the western, absolutely smashed it to bits. I mean, he missed almost not one single roll to hit. I think he missed about 2 dice out the whole lot. So there's now 4 dead bases there, including the heavy machine gun and a bailed out T-70, which is not so important. It's more the fact that platoon's now gutted. It's got no prospect of making any kind of progress. One more round of good shooting and they will be dead. So that'll be the end of my attack. Soviet turn 2. So the storm group and the company commander were pinned, they all unpinned and then ran away. Maybe that's not the right thing to do, but I don't really see the point. They're probably getting the wrong impression about how useful these guys are because they got so many hits in one go and they failed so many saves. They're probably not as rubbish as that looked, but I'm just backing them off, leaving the mortar there because it might be able to shoot something from that position, you never know. The T-70s, the build one got back in, so everything's, they've moved back, they've moved up. The individual mortar over here rearranged in here, never got hit this turn. The 122s managed to kill 2 bases of mortars, and then these guys added a few machine gun dice down here and over here, but never did anything. So that's it for why no reserves. So that's it for me for this turn. Nothing much happening. So German turn 3, everything unpinned. These mortars failed the last stand, but they were within 6 inches of him. So that was a successful reroll. Ambush with 88s popped over there and slaughtered them. 5 hits, 5 past firepowers. Did. 1 left alive. The mortars stayed ranged in there but didn't hit because of rerolls. The West shot these guys, managed a couple of hits but no kills. And that's it just now, but they'll be rolling for reserves from next turn. Soviet turn 3, so first of all I got 1 reserve. Great. They've come on and dashed on over there. I know where the ambush is now. I know where the 88s are. So I can just stay away from them as far as my own tanks go, because that would be suicide. Where the lovely Panzer 470s come on though, that's another matter, but I'm going to come on here and push down here. So in that respect they've moved up. They unpinned and have moved up. That's the second survivors of the storm group. Company command useless buggers didn't, so they're just keeping out the way. he stayed, for what that's worth. He's just going to stay in those wrecks for some cover. He fired up at the observer and missed. And then in terms of shooting, oh, forgot to do the 1-2-2s, but we'll come back to that. The single mortar over here managed to hit a base, pin, but didn't kill. So we'll just go back to rolling that, see if I kill any mortars. And the Germans will be rolling for reserves next turn. So German turn 3, the mortar unpinned but then run away, even with the reroll. The infantry over here unpinned, and reserves arrives after just 1 dice. So the worst possible scenario that I could have got was these guys arriving in turn 3 and rolling a 1 or a 2 for where they come on. And as you can see, there's now, I suppose it could have gone worse, but there's one dead eye issue, and I've now got to deal with them. And then in terms of the rest of the shooting, the 88's murdered this poor guy over here. The Wesps ranged down on these guys, got 1 hit, but that was it this turn, because it took 3 attempts to range in, and with them being careful, I needed 6s to hit. So, I will get my last reserves in next turn. We'll have to see. I need 5 to hit these guys. And move. I could move forward, but I don't know if it'll be any. I shall see. See what can possibly be done, if anything. Soviet turn 4. In terms of unpinning, the company command did by these guys. Fearless. Works every time, didn't. I got my last reserves on and they charged all the way up to here. And then these guys had all moved up from the wood. Did follow me. And then in terms of shooting, these guys managed to get 1. The artillery ranged in as well, but got a couple of hits, didn't get any kills. These guys managed to get in, took no kills on the way in, and counter fire, got 6 hits but no kills. No bails or anything, they had to break off, the road didn't make their 5+, so they're now in a position to shoot back because I failed my shooting scoot to try and push them back a bit further out of range. So he's going to get 4 shots to try and finish them off at short range. My T-34s cannot get into his side, and the guys are probably going to get smashed with artillery next turn, so we'll see what happens. So German turn 4, no reserves this turn. Everything that needed to, if anything did need to unpin did. I can't remember if I did. These guys stayed put to shoot. A couple of these guys moved out of bulletproof cover to have a go at them. And then in terms of shooting, they got not the most successful turn of shooting, I have to admit, but they still killed and bailed 1. Well, no, in fact, they got 4 hits. But 1 saved, 1 failed and bailed, and 1 double hit died. So there's still 1 operational. These guys got bombarded. They also got shot by them, but they had cover for the fence. That saved them to a degree. Bombardment this turn wasn't too effective, but it got the bloody heavy machine gun. Of course it did. And they're pinned, so we'll have to see if they unpin. If they don't, they're in a lot of trouble. So I've got everything on the table now. We just have to see if they can do anything. Soviet turn 5. Fearless for the win every time. They guys failed to unpin, but more importantly, so did they. He never got back in, but at least they didn't run. So I moved my flamers up, and pretty much everything else stayed put. So in terms of shooting, I ranged into 1-2-2s back here and killed a base of infantry. A wee mortar over here, ranged in over here, but didn't do anything. Got a hit but didn't do anything. And then these guys managed to kill a base of infantry with 15 flame shots, but they're overworked. So they needed 6s that turn. And then I got 1 shot at the guys and missed, of course. So I don't really see them surviving another turn. And then they'll just eat up them, especially if the Mardos come to help. So let's see what happens in the next turn. German turn 5, the last reserves came on, but unfortunately they came in over here. So Brian brought them up to here, and they managed to go over the hedge and was able to dash to there. Everything else, pretty well, the infantry have decided he's got to push on for an objective himself, otherwise he's heading for a draw. And then everything over here stayed put. These guys stayed, got on the ground, which means the flamers needed 6 to hit them. They dug in to give a bit more protection. Then they shoot in, they got absolutely smashed to bits. I mean, these guys are careful, so they shouldn't be getting hit so much, but they just hit every time. And I failed bucket loads of saves. Even with rerolls, still quite a lot of failed saves. 3 plus firepower, sorry, for a Wesp is really effective as well, so they're getting slaughtered. But these guys had no luck, only one hit out of 4, and I saved it. So we'll see. This is still a wee bit under pressure, but not by much, and the Marders are going to come over soon to deal with these guys. Soviet turn 6. So, in terms of motivation, the guys in there unpinned, they unpinned, needing the help of the company command. He didn't get back in, he didn't run away. And then in shooting, oh, in movement, sorry, I should say, these guys are Congo lining up, try to follow me, fearless, with a reroll from the company command. No, we won't bother. We will just dawdle along in the back. And these guys moved out along the side for assaulting. And then in shooting, the artillery was already arranged in over here and they killed one. It's like, what? And then that survivor, short range, managed to hit, killed another one. And then flamers, loads and loads and loads and loads of dice. 3 guys hit, and they all saved, even with rerolls. I mean, wonderful things, these awesome game-winning flamethrowers. But then the assault went in, and I managed to only take 4 hits on the way in, so I was lucky. 1 died on the way in. 4 got into combat, killed 2. Counter-attack came in, killed one of mine. Then I counter-attacked again, fortunately, killed the remaining 2. These 2 were too far, this one was too far away to get involved, so I ended the assault. 2 of these tanks were within 4 inches of that objective, so that met the victory condition. So I somehow managed to wangle a win out of that, though I feel like the Scotland team playing Switzerland on Monday night back there, I felt as though I got an absolute kicking. But we'll go over to the recap. Brian's had to go, so I'm just going to share his thoughts with you guys on the recap. Well, there you go, folks. A Soviet victory. I'm doing Brian's summing up because he's had to scoot somewhere, an errand to run. So his first thoughts were this game wasn't a very good game for his list. His list was a compact defensive list. And even if you're choosing a defensive list and you choose to defend, you don't always end up in a defensive mission. There he was really a nominal defender because he had to attack as well. And that wasn't really going to happen. He had to use all his resources to stop me attacking. The list itself, well, as far as tank hunters go, I think we're pretty convinced now you don't want 2 platoons in your list, unless it's maybe 2 platoons of these cheap Marders. Otherwise, you could go for the Panzer 470s as cheap Panthers, or, as we'll come to later, there's other ways of getting cheap Panthers. So it's a tricky one. In that situation, maybe instead of having the Marders and the Panzer 470s, the Marder swapped out for a platoon of infantry would might have maybe been a better option. But then his anti-tank ratings would rely very much on those 88s. Now, as far as the game goes, Brian admits that he fell for the T-70 trap. He maybe had to think about what he could do with them because they were getting right up to the Wesps, but when he popped his ambush where he did, it meant I knew where I didn't have to deal with 88, so down I went. And then Brian was just forced to react with his list the way it was, see where his reserves came on, and try and build up a bit of pressure of his own. Now, if you'd have seen that live stream, you'd have seen me huffing and puffing all game, because my guys just got hit every time, failed to save, all over the place, and it gives the impression that these elite Soviet infantry are not all that good. Well, to be honest, that's probably a false impression. You can't expect too much, but they died a bit too easily in that game. They're careful, they're veteran, 3-up skill, fearless, but they were just failing their motivations left, right and centre. So I didn't get my plan, which was 1 platoon into the town to be a nuisance, another platoon off to snip off that objective. So imagine that the 88 ambush had been on that objective, the platoon going down the middle could have swerved off to join up with the Hero Shock Rifles. Plans, well, it doesn't always work out that way, so I just had to try and keep pushing forward through the frustration until I got a little bit lucky. managed to actually kill those Panzer 470s and managed to get those guys into assault. That was the critical bit. Parked the T-34s right in front of the objective, so they had to be dealt with. Flamethrowers, by the way, devastating. I don't think they killed a single thing in 2 rounds of shooting. 30 dice, no casualties, well done. But they were there within 4 inches of the objective, so I was able to get the assault in, and my guys did what they're supposed to do. So, Brian's thoughts about the list are, no, not for him. He's more of a Waffen-SS guys. Waffen-SS list these days. You get more for your points. You can cover more of the table. They might be a little bit more vulnerable, but better to be a bit more vulnerable than simply not there. You can reinforce important points at important times if he's got more vehicles, more tanks, more dice to be rolled against the likes of the Soviets. So there you go. Hopefully you enjoyed the game, folks. It's nice to see some infantry on the table, nice to see them even managing to get a win. Hopefully you're enjoying the football and your nation is doing well in the tournament. And if you're watching this on Friday night, come on Scotland!